Good afternoon, everyone. I do apologize for any technical difficulties that we had when we started the live cast today, but I think we're on track now. I do need to start with some housekeeping things in reference to Main Street Capital Partners. We are not giving you any legal advice, and we are not giving you any investment or accounting advice. This information that's being provided to you today is for informational purposes only. Due diligence is a very important part before you actually buy a note, whether it's performing, non-performing, whether it's a first mortgage, a second mortgage, if it's originated by a private investor, or if it's actually created by a financial institution. So some of the things that you need to take into consideration before you actually start, or before you fund a loan, you need to look at what the value of this note is. And when I say what the value of this note is what are you going to pay for it? There may be a loan that you're buying a second lien position that's $100,000 note, but you need to make sure that what you're going to offer, you're not going to take a bath on. So one of the things that we would like for you to consider or to take a look at is, are there any property taxes owed? And if there's property taxes owed, how much are they? We also want you to look at properties that are sold and the dates of their comps to kind of get a value. And I'll go over this a little bit more in depth later, but I just kind of wanted to start off on what are some of the things that you're looking for when you have all of this data in front of you and you don't know where to begin. So I want you to just start with the basics. And when you're looking at value, you need to look at the distance of the comps that you're looking at online or the comparables online to actually get the value of what your property or your structure is valued at. Ways that you can check value. One of the ways that you can check value, well, there's several ways. One is Zillow. It's an online tool that pretty much anyone that has access to the internet can have. Trulia is another place where you can actually look to get values. One of the things that I like above Trulia with Zillow is that when you go to Zillow, sometimes if there's any county information available, such as the tax assessor's office, there's a link actually provided on the page. Good thing to know. And if you go down probably about probably halfway down the page on the Zillow page, and you look to your right, there is a link that's normally either in blue or green. If you click that, it'll take you to the county website where your property or your where the property structure is at. You can always order a BPO, but if you actually start ordering BPOs before you actually decide if you're going to buy a note or not, you could spend a lot of money on looking for values and never actually make a purchase. You can use e-appraisal, or you can actually contact a local realtor in that area for comps. How do you find a realtor in a particular area on where you have a note that you're interested in? A lot of times, if you call a local title company and you ask them what is, or who is, not what is, who is the top REO agent, who's closed the most deals in their area, and get their name, and you get their information and you give that realtor a call, that realtor can really give you a lot of good, solid information. You never tell them you're looking to buy a note. You kind of do some digging, but you have to ask fact-finding questions, but never tell them that you're an investor. The other thing that's really, really important and is key to being successful in what you're doing and buying notes is actually checking taxes. And there are so many different factors in checking taxes that you need to know what you're inquiring on and what information you're trying to gather. So when you call a state that you're not familiar with, you need to ask them what type of taxes are linked to properties. You can actually find out that there's city taxes there's county taxes, there's school taxes. Sometimes there's fines imposed on the property by the city because the grass hasn't been cut, trash or debris in the yard. If someone had to go out and board up the property, sometimes they're called special assessments. So you need to also verify how much those special assessments are that's linked to the property. And not in all states, but a lot of states, there are water actually follows the property, so it'll attach to the property. Sometimes you can find out that there is a $10,000-$15,000 water bill attached to the property because the water was never turned off and the property wasn't winterized. So these are things that are very, very important that you actually look into before you actually, again, buy a note. Some of the questions that you also maybe want to know is sometimes not paying taxes could cause loss of lien position. The lien could be wiped. The homeowner would lose ownership of the property. So now you no longer have a deed of trust or a mortgage. You now only have a note to enforce. And then are there fines and interest accrued on past due taxes? Because sometimes there is. And most of the time, property taxes takes precedence over your lien. So what does that mean? You, if you foreclose, you have to factor in the foreclosure costs, and you also have to factor in the cost it's going to cure the past due taxes. You cannot get a deed or a deed of trust if you don't actually take care of the property taxes after you've gone through the foreclosure process. How can you check taxes, or how do you check taxes? You can pick up the phone and call the treasurer's office to confirm that amount due. You can also use an online tool that we use Netter Online. When you are calling, again, the county, sometimes you might be bounced around to a few different areas. And when you're talking to whomever you're speaking to at the tax assessor's office, make sure that there's not been any third-party tax liens sold. And if they have been, see if they're willing to give you the phone number and name of the company who actually purchased those tax liens. One of the other things that's really, really important that you check for a number of reasons, and we will cover them in a future live cast, is checking bankruptcy. Why do you want to check bankruptcy? Because it can slow down your exit in a Chapter 7, and you also cannot pursue a deficiency balance if a borrower has filed a Chapter 7. So again, you have to factor that in with your pricing and what you're going to pay for the loan and what you think you're going to be able to recover. Also, you also need to know if a borrower is in a Chapter 13, which a Chapter 13 is not always a bad thing, but you need to verify if a borrower is in a Chapter 13, whether it's a first lien position or a second lien position. It's very, very important to know if a borrower is in a 13. The reason why you need to know about a 13 is if it's a first lien position, you need to actually file a proof of claim. If it is a second lien position, you also maybe need to file a proof of claim, but there's also language sometimes that's used in a Chapter 13 to do a lien strip. And you need to know if that borrower is actually trying to strip or eliminate the lien that you are about to purchase. When you are using PACER, and that's the system that we use to actually check bankruptcies, you need to do a national search. Don't just do a search for the state and the city where the borrower is residing, because they could have moved. You need to narrow down your search by using the borrower's last name, first initial, and the last four of the social security number. We do know that this can be a challenge sometimes because some sellers do not provide social security numbers. And if you don't have a social security number with a common name, it's very, very hard for you to actually gather that information. Additional considerations that you should check for when you are doing your due diligence and you're doing your upfront research on your loans. Check to see if the property is listed. Just simply Google the address. If the property is listed, normally if you search it via Google, a MLS link or listing will come up. If you have access to it, it's really another great tool is to review any notes or comments that the previous seller may have in the file. It'll just let you know when is the last time they've communicated with the borrower, how often that they've made attempts to contact the borrower. And if on your data tape their interest rate has changed, you would also request a copy of a loan modification or forbearance agreement that potential seller may have put the borrower into. And see if they'll provide you a payment history over the last 12 months, if it's a reperforming loan or a subperforming loan, or just to see, there may have been a payment made, December of 2014 and the borrower hasn't paid any more. There was a reason why they made that payment, something happened, and that still may be a good loan for you to purchase. If there are indications on the data tape that the borrower is deceased, generally you will see sometimes the estate of John Smith, the estate of Jane Doe. Check the probate records in the county that the borrower possibly resided in or passed away in. And also you want to check to see if there are any unpaid HOAs, homeowner association fees. We are so guilty of sometimes using acronyms, and I am guilty of it, and I apologize. But HOA fees, if the property is actually in a condo, if it's a condo, or if it's in a community that has an HOA or homeowners association, it's good to see if there's any fees that the homeowners association has that the borrower has not paid. I hope that this information in reference to due diligence has been very helpful to you and very informative. I would like to thank you for joining me on the Livecast this week. And next week, I don't know what our topic will be. I don't know if it'll be myself or Ron doing the presentation, but I just would like to thank you for your time, for joining us on the Livecast, and you have a wonderful day, and we will see you next week.